A new world order. He's not wrong. I mean, if you're a neocon, if you're a liberal internationalist, if you're a defensive realist, if you're any of those, it's pretty simple. It's true. The world is different. We talk about Cold War and post-Cold War world. I mean, it's clear that it's a new world. Is it a new world order? Well, almost by definition it is. So what does he mean when he says this? You guys watch that video. Here's a nice little another statement of that. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic visions of the founders. This feels, especially when I add this United Nations, feels very liberal internationalism. That's clearly not where he's going with it, but still, New World Order. I like it. So, New World Order. Now, so what does it mean? The answer is it can mean almost anything, and it's super mocked. I'll just give you, this is completely off topic, but Point Loma had this motto for a while, probably when you guys first got here. What was their sort of, their marketing and all that? It was PLNU forward. That was the motto. Now here's the deal. Forward to what? Like forward into a pile of hot lava, forward into a pile of hot steaming poop. You know, who knows what the forward is? And that's the same thing with the New World Order. It's a great idea. You know, it scares some evangelicals. I should just, you know, fire that up right now, that especially when, you know, as you're reading your Revelation, you start to go, New World Order, Antichrist, holy crap. But other than that, it's also this just idea of just like, okay, what does that mean? And the answer is it can mean just about anything. He doesn't really make it clear what it means other than it's new, it's a world, and it's an order. And that's about all you have with that. The original meaning, this is really what it's sort of intended to be, is this Soviet-U.S. cooperation. This is coming back from the Cold War days. The new meaning, as we just sort of said, has this more cooperative international system. But remember, he's a defensive realist. He's not exactly saying let's all go to the table at the UN or anything like that. It's much more like the way the Gulf War was fought, which is we're all going to come to the table, but the United States is going to own the table and be the one talking, and then you all come along with it. So it's a cooperative international system, but it resembles something along the lines of hegemonic stability theory, where essentially the United States, as the sole superpower, has a role in keeping the world stable, maintaining the status quo, leading the charge, but it's definitely leading the charge. It's not the same as liberal internationalism. Liberal internationalists, they liked that idea of cooperative international system, but that is not what Bush meant, and it's not what the GOP wanted either. So again, it sort of loses a lot of its meaning, because when you say it, A, people mean different things by it, and B, even if they mean the same thing, they don't necessarily agree on that. So it was a little bit of a problem. GOP and Bush lacked a coherent idea of the New World Order. If you pressed and said, well, what do you mean by this? You get different ideas. Bush didn't really have a clear idea, which really leads into another problem that Bush had. Again, foreign policy, you're doing a great job, buddy. The rest of the stuff, which a president has to do, not so solid. One of the things that he was always kind of made fun of is a lack of a strategic vision. Now, clearly, this was true domestically. For example, one of the things George H.W. Bush is well known for is he said at one point, I think it was in like 1990, he goes on TV and says, read my lips, no new taxes. And within a year, there are new taxes. Ooh, my dad was pissed at that. But just a strategic vision. In other words, I can do the foreign policy, but can I get you excited about what comes next? The answer is no. And he would always, George H.W. Bush would use this term, the vision thing. And it was needed to justify actions of the public. He just didn't really have a good one. Cold War, no problem. Anti-communism, that was a vision. Get people behind that, no problem. 2000, so jump forward after 9/11. You get people on board with anti-terrorism, right? There's anti-communism, anti-terrorism. I know the enemy, it's very clear. Boom, we're all on board. from 1991 to 2001, after the Soviet Union collapses, what's like who's the enemy? Huge questions on that. And Bush didn't really have a good answer to it. Clinton didn't have a good answer either, but Clinton was better at spinning to domestic issues that didn't need a good answer to that. So some examples of this would be the conversation about should we keep NATO? If so, why? George H.W. Bush was very clear, we need to keep NATO, even though we don't have the Soviet Union. The question of why is still one we're asking today, about what it actually does and how it sort of works. And every once in a while, there's a conversation that NATO is going to sort of fall apart. Another conversation is, after the Soviet Union falls apart, do we need a new Marshall Plan? Remember, Marshall Plan was that idea that we're going to give money to states in Western Europe after World War II to sort of rebuild. Does there need to be a Marshall Plan for post-communist states? Why? There wasn't really a good argument as to what needs to come next. Like after World War II, there was a very clear argument. We need to give money through the Marshall Plan to Western Europe so that they don't become communist. Very clear story. Here, we need to give money to post-communist states so that they blah, blah, blah. I don't really know. And that was pretty difficult. And, you know, Pat Buchanan, again, that guy on the other side, the neo-isolationist, comes along and says, look, dude, time to focus on America. That's that. All right. You're going to go watch a video here. It's a quick one, another quick one. This is from a 1992 debate. This is so sad. It's one of those things that after you watch it, you will not be surprised that Bush lost the election. He just, again, have the Soviet Union collapsing over here. He's on board, knows exactly what to do, ran the CIA, does all that. Put him in touch with the common person with a question. Like one of the very famous things, just before I go, one of the famous things from this debate is notice like in the first 10 seconds, when he stands up, he immediately checks his watch. He has made fun of that for like, where do you got to be? You got to be somewhere? You don't want to talk to the average American person? What's on your watch there? So take a look at that and then we'll come back.